Before their meeting, President Obama and Vladimir Putin let their body language do all the talking, clinking champagne glasses as the Russian leader cracked a sly smile. Earlier in the day, Mr. Obama warned the United Nations of what he called dangerous currents that could lead to a darker world, making his feelings clear about Putin's new shadow in the Middle East.
We're told that such retrenchment is required to beat back disorder.
The president slammed Putin's recipe for defeating ISIS, whose main ingredient is propping up that country's leader, Bashar al-Assad.
In accordance with this logic, we should support tyrants like Bashar al-Assad, who drops barrel bombs to massacre innocent children, because the alternative is surely worse.
But with no end in sight in the battle against ISIS, Putin is essentially proposing a plan B. Instead of supporting the Syrian rebels like the U.S., Russia wants to back Assad, so it's forming an intelligence sharing agreement with Iraq, Iran, and Syria.
No one but President Assad's armed forces and Kurds militia are truly fighting the Islamic State and other terrorist organizations in Syria.
Putin blamed the U.S. for the rise of ISIS.
We think it is an enormous mistake to refuse to cooperate with the Syrian government.
As he explained to 60 Minutes, Putin argues the U.S. has miscalculated by taking the wrong sides in the Arab Spring.
We support the legitimate government of Syria.
President Obama, who's long said Assad must go, is now softening that stance and adding he'll even work with Russia and Iran.
Realism dictates that compromise will be required to end the fighting and ultimately stamp out ISIL.
But the U.S. and Russia still aren't collaborating, even as Moscow ramps up its military presence in Syria.
This is not yet coordinated.
Which is why these two leaders are talking face-to-face in their first bilateral meeting since this encounter more than 2 years ago. An easier time in the relationship before Russia invaded Ukraine and became isolated from the West, something Mr. Obama wants the world to remember.
If that happens without consequence in Ukraine, it could happen to any nation gathered here today.